brave adventures tonight with our mighty team. Heroes we become, living out the dream. Roll the dice, feel the thrill, monsters we will overthrow. Questing with friends in the RPG show.
It's Friday. We're taking a look at all the tabletop role-playing game news that we might have missed during the rest of the week because we were focused on something else. And we have to start off with actual news that could affect the holidays with the longshoreman union strike that's hitting shipping that could affect shipping between us and the UK and the UK and us. I'm drinking coffee. What's up, nerds? It's your boy, the OGGM, coming to you live, recorded at 8 o'clock in the morning here at Site B. It's the 27th day of September, 2024. It is cold and gloomy yet again, and we have this longshoreman union story to take a look at. Something politics. Many European and UK publishers ship to the US across the Atlantic. I don't know if this is like frightening or gorgeous. Just all these shipping containers just lined up like this, I mean, it's almost art, sort of. And whatever. I'm just whatever. So, yes. Without getting into things that I don't understand and regarding what's going on in the UK and what's going on here, obviously, the UK publishes and creates a lot of board games, a lot of the big stompy mech dark fantasy miniature games. Free League is over in Europe. Games Workshop is over in Europe, and they ship to us and the rest of the world. And we ship from here, Eastern Coast, like Maryland, Boston, New Jersey, New York, places like that all have ports in them. And Texas, because yes, Texas has an ocean. The Gulf of Mexico. So a strike. Now, where's the strike? Is the strike here or the strike over there? It's a strike here. 14 major ports of the Atlantic and Gulf Coast from Texas to Massachusetts would be affected by the walkout, with 45,000 workers going on strike. This would be the first East Coast dock strike since 1944. So anybody shipping from Europe would have to worry about getting their stuff to America, which would cause prices to skyrocket even further, where they're already pretty skyrocketed now, because of the shipping issues during COVID. Well, this would just add to that already hampered down system. I mean, by the time COVID ended, we were already like a year behind of stuff that needed to be shipped, which, that shipping crate of tomatoes, like, what do you mean it's been sitting there for a year and it's just been filled with tomatoes? Yeah, I don't know what to do with that one. So yeah, they were already a year behind, and they're just catching up, which is why stuff is, especially over here, like Kickstarters, are slow, and companies that don't produce here in America are so slow in finally getting stuff. And now we're shutting a lot of the major East Coast ports down. The West Coast ports, including where I live, we have a huge port. And of course, the Los Angeles port, the San Diego port, the Northern California ports, they're not affected. But New York, New Jersey, Alabama, Texas, Houston, Florida would all be affected. Anything shipping out from there to across the ocean would be affected because, they're not going to do the job. And anything shipping from there to here would be affected. So that expect prices to shoot up even more. And this should affect about 70% of all exports and 60% of all imports. Eek. All right. So don't complain in a couple days that your prices are too high, or because something didn't show up, or, oh, goddamn you Wizards of the Coast, where's my monster manual? Yeah. Shipping. Unions. Stuff I don't understand. But it affects us. Okay, these guys contacted me at the beginning of the week, and I told them I would give them a shout out. So here it is. Titmouse announces Drunkards, Druggies, and Delinquents, a new tabletop role-playing game party game. It's just a party game, okay? Titmouse, if you've never heard of them, is an animation studio, and they're now jumping on the tabletop role-playing game business. They're the ones who made Legends of Vox Machina and Star Trek Lower Decks, the best Star Trek show on TV right now. It's a satire and counterculture role-playing game, a party game with role-playing elements, which will players take on the role of rebellious adventurers fooled by drink or substance of their choice. So it's imbibing with drugs and alcohol. Yeah, so it's definitely a party game. I'm not really sure what the role-playing aspect is it, but it's definitely focusing on the more drug, alcohol, goofy, delinquent aspects of the gaming, the stereotype, Which means, again, it's more of a party game. I mean, you don't need to call it a role-playing game. You could just say it's a party game has some role-playing elements. We sit around, we drink, we pull the cards, something happens, we respond to something happens, our characters progress, but there's that weird no man's land, right? We talked about this before, that weird no man's land, or like, where does X start and role-playing start, right? Like Hero Quest would be a perfect example. It's got figures, it's got maps, it's got characters that level up, but it's not a complete role-playing game, but it's close, right? Nebulous No Man's Zone, or like the Lone Wolf and Cub Choose Your Own Adventure books. It's got an adventure, it's got a character that levels up, but it's just you. So is that a role-playing game or not? And then that crosses over to the solo role-playing game fad, which is really huge right now. And then you're like, is it a role-playing game or not? I mean, do I need more than one individual to become a role-playing game? Or is it a role-playing game if it's just me, because I am randomly rolling dice and going through this book? And now we have this, where it's going to have characters, but it's also more built around sort of a party game environment. So is it a role-playing game? What about Alice is Missing, tabletop role-playing game of the year from a couple of years ago? It was basically werewolf, or, any other sus game. Is that a role-playing game? Is Werewolf a role-playing game? Is Blood on the Clock Tower a role-playing game? As the evolution of the hobby has changed, the definition of the word has changed, other than it's a game where you're playing a role, like delinquent or chef or police officer or whatever. I don't know anymore. I don't know if it ever really meant anything. But anyways, these guys reached out to me, and I said I'd give them a shout out. So thanks for reaching out to me, Titmouse, for letting me know about the product. If you want to send me a copy to review, I'd be happy to review it to you. If you want me to interview you on my YouTube podcasty thing here, I'd be happy to do that too. Otherwise, take a look for Titmouse. And I just love being able to say Titmouse and not get in trouble. Titmouse's new role-playing party game, anime, goofy, I don't know. Titmouse. We also know that there is a Discworld role-playing game coming out. From the Discworld people, Terry Pratchett, etc., etc., etc. Thanks to In World, we have a Turtles all the way down. We have a first look at the Discworld role-playing game. It uses the statless trait system and leans heavily on wit and cleverness. For the players in the GM, when the players want to make a test, they accomplish something that has a chance to fail. They declare an action, then attempt to justify the action using one of their traits. After the player has provided the justification, the GM decides them an outcome dice with the size of the dice dependent on how well the trait fits while the actions are attempted to accomplish. If players has provided a perfect justification, the GM may assign a D12 or a T10. If the justification is weaker, it might be a D4 or a D6. Once the outcome is determined, the player rolls their outcome dice while the GM rolls the narrativium die, with the highest roll result determining the outcome of the test. That seems an overly complicated way to describe that. Your dice roll versus my dice roll. If the player's dice roll is higher than the narrativium die, Narrativium, is that a word? I think they made up a word. You succeed on the test. If there's a lower result, there's consequences. Or if it's a tie, and you roll a 1, something really sounds like just sort of mashing together other gimmicky systems to create a brand new gimmicky system. Stop trying to create brand new gimmicky systems to be different. There is a huge plethora of systems out there, both still being supported and that have died and been put on a shelf that you could easily use instead of trying to make a brand new system just to be gimmicky. Oh, your dice roll depends upon how well you describe climbing the ladder, Billy. So if you want to get the D12, you have to describe climbing the ladder to me in implicate detail, as well as your motivation for climbing the ladder and how it might influence your traits. But if your definition of the climbing the ladder experience isn't up to my completely random idea of what I think is the best description of climbing a ladder, well, you might only get to roll a D4 or a D6, but you don't get to roll a D8. Only I get to roll a D8. All right, now that we've decided that your story about climbing the ladder was pretty mediocre, Billy, I want you to roll a D6, and you've got to beat what I rolled on the D8, which is 4. So if you roll a D6 using your ladder climbing trait, and it beats my 4, you successfully climb the ladder. But if you equal to me, well, you still successfully climb the ladder, but there's consequences. And if your number's below to me, then you fail from climbing the ladder. So, okay, Billy, give me your description of climbing the ladder. At that point, Billy would just go, fuck it, I'm not going to climb the ladder. Dear God, I just wanted to change the fucking light bulb. This system is way too complicated. Plus, it's completely based upon the DM's arbitrary opinion of whether you described a task up to his standards or not, which is a completely constantly changing. I mean, on Monday, my standards for your story of ladder climbing, and Wednesday, on my standards of your story of ladder climbing might be completely different depending upon what mood I'm in. I mean, do I have to write you an epic novel describing how I climb the fucking ladder to get the new light bulbs? Or I can just say, I want to climb the ladder to get the light bulbs. And I'm going to use my climbing trait, okay? Do you need an epic story? Or can you just give me the roll? Yeah, don't try and be gimmicky, okay? I mean, just use dice pools. D6 dice pools, D10 dice pools. Hell, make a D12 dice pool system. This just sounds overly complicated because the player's constantly going to be placed in this antagonistic mentality with you where we're constantly butting heads over whether I thought my description was worthy of a D10 or not, and whether you felt my description was worthy of a D12 or not. And I have to constantly keep jumping the hoops to live up to your arbitrary definition of what you think a skill test is. And that's just considering non-combat. In combat, where you got everything else going on in a combat, plus now this arbitrary hoop I have to jump through, and constantly trying to think, okay, how detailed do I have to be to get the D10? Or God forbid, the D12? If I don't tell the story of why I'm hitting this guy over the head with a stick up to your expectations, you might only give me a D4 or a D6. Yeah, I think I'm going to avoid this one. Come up with a better system. Speaking of systems and words we've been saying wrong, apparently it's not Morkborg, it's Mirkborg. Mirkborg, which means Dark Citadel. And Mirkborg is getting its own video game from Steam, specifically from Morbidware. It'll be on Steam. It's a side-scrolling style video game inspired by the art of the dark fantasy game. There appears to be a side-scroller in which players take control of adventurers battling through monsters and horrific creatures on the brink. Here's the trailer. I don't know if we can watch it or not without getting... There's that weird art punk art style of Mirk. I mean, Morkborg is just a great word. You don't have to like the system. It's just a good word. It's a cool word, but Merkborg is better. Okay, very graphic design heavy.
Valley, bound by the
And now I want to see gameplay, please. Blah blah blah. Here, gameplay, please. Gameplay, please. Gameplay, please. Gameplay, please. Don't care about your story. Want to see gameplay? There you go. No. Okay. Sold me on the animation. I want to see, which I don't like. Okay, it's gonna have a metal soundtrack. What? Yeah. I want to see gameplay. What little I saw looked like it was a lot like Darker Dungeon or Darker and Darker. So side-scrolling, art punk, graphic design. Feels like it's going to be a slow, clunky computer eating system, but I don't know. Side-scrolling Diablo, but even more art punk. Could work. I don't know if it really needs a Merkborg role computer game, but maybe the world does need a Merkborg computer game. Gotta suck for the Merkborg guy to go, wow, well, my initial game didn't do that well, but all the parodies and spin-offs of my initial game are doing 1,000 times better than my initial game. But I don't see the Pirateberg money or the Cyberg money or my favorite Borkborg money. No, I see a percentage of that because the other company is making games using my system because apparently they were in on the fact that it was a joke. I mean, it's a gorgeous game if you like that kind of art, graphic design, art punk style. I have mixed feelings about art punk, as you guys know. Blah, blah, blah. Moving on to the final story of the day, something light and fluffy to end the news with. Merchandising, where the real money is. Well, we're still not getting an official Wizards of the Coast Hasbro 50th anniversary t-shirt, which in my messed up brain thinks logically that should have been the very first thing we got in February to coalition with Year of the Dragon, a official Wizards of the Coast t-shirt. But nope, we are getting instead an official Hasbro Dungeons and Dragons album, 12-track album with songs that take inspiration from the Forgotten Realms. All original songs pay homage to various iconic locations and the Sword Coast, because Wizards of the Coast has forgotten that there is more to the Forgotten Realms than the Sword Coast. Sword Coast and, I don't know, some other places. Those aren't important. Molharan, not important. Zental Keep, not important. Thay, not important. But the Swords Coast, it features a 40-person choir, artistically directed by A.J. Handel, produced by Jeremy Jarvis, and composed by Michael Gratt. That might mean anything to people out there who are musically inclined. I don't know anything about any of those artists. So it'll be music tracks about iconic locations. Will there be singing? I guess there'll be singing because there's a choir, but it could just be, the humming Gorgarian chant type singing. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, oh, amber waves of grain, oh, water deep forever standing, we love you to the end. Is that what it's going to be like? Iconic locations, Dale Lands, in the Dale Lands, in the Dale Lands, I don't know. Now, part of you might be thinking, this is really ridiculous. But if you go through the Wayback Machine down to the 60s, 70s, and 80s, before vinyl kind of died, IP-based albums were a thing with both official and then homage to. I mean, there was Star Wars, of course, which was just the complete soundtrack of the music, but then there was the upbeat disco version of Star Wars, and that had its own album, The Hobbit, and then like just music inspired by The Hobbit. It's kind of like, how you have cookbooks, cooking in the Shire. It was like these were things were all over the place. I mean, Donald Duck sings Green Day. They were all over the place for especially in the kids section and the soundtrack section and the inspired by section. They were a thing. And then of course vinyl died. In the next step, they weren't doing those as much. They're focusing more on actual product as opposed to things like this. But they've always been out there. So somewhere in the back of my mind, this just clicked as, it is a lifestyle brand now, right? As opposed to whatever it was before. Wizards decided it was a lifestyle brand. An album makes sense. Believe it or not, vinyl is back. It's back huge. May not be where you are, but it's back huge. There are vinyl stores again in New York, and there's vinyl stores again here in California. So vinyl is back. I mean, vinyl never really went away, but it had a very niche population for a while, and now it's back because people are once again realizing that, especially with all the advancements in technology, music sounds better on vinyl than it does on CD or on online on stream. That vinyl still catches music better, and especially with all the new advancements in vinyl and the new advancements in technology since the 70s, 60s, and 80s, it sounds way better on vinyl than anything else, unless you have a super epic 7.1 surround sound system or something. But for those of us laymen, yeah. So this one doesn't surprise me, actually. Official 50th anniversary Dungeons and Dragons themed beard spray and body deodorant. That one I was like, okay. I mean, it's not again, body deodorant based upon an IP, not new. It's been done before, but beard gel, we don't get a t-shirt, but we get beard gel. We don't get a t-shirt. I mean, as much as I bag on Wizards, I would have bought the official 50th anniversary t-shirt if they made one. But we get an album filled with Forgotten Realms themed music and the choir singing about the joys of the Sword Coast. Oh, Under Mountain. Oh, Under Mountain. I don't know. I can't imagine what it would sound like, but it'll probably sound like just like generic Enya-esque haunting melody, that kind of stuff, like whatever. And they'll be like, oh yeah, that's the music of Stormkeeper. I don't know. Could be fun. Thanks, Ian World, for all these links and all the news. What's going on in your end of the tabletop role-playing game world? Let me know. It's Friday for most of us. By the time we hear my voice again on Monday or later today or tomorrow, we'll be deep into the beginnings of Halloween and spookiness. Spooky. So looking forward to that. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you later, I'm sure, because we got the live play of Dragon Pain on Friday, and we're going to do the magic system today. So until then, just stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you losers later.
News from the table in the rolling waves. Dice in